So I originally wasn't going to have any type of intro or any generic, 2023 was sure was a tough year. But 2023 seemed like a really hard year for everybody. But one thing that really helped me get through the year was movies. And I'm going to talk about all the ones I saw this past year that helped me get through everything. So without a whole bunch of yapping around, these are all the movies I saw last year, and I'm going to go ahead and give you my opinions on them. There's a lot of movies, so I'll try to keep my thoughts brief on each movie. Oh, before I go through with the video, I'm saying this like I say every year. So you can't get mad at me.
You're old.
So A Man Called Otto was actually kind of a surprise to me. I saw the trailers and I was like, oh, this looks like just one of your generic, kind of sappy, feel-good films. But it actually does things a little bit differently. First off, the story is kind of dark, and it starts off with Otto trying to unalive himself. But it ended up being a pretty good story. Tom Hanks actually does a really good job playing this old curmudgeon-y figure. And I will admit that the story did make me get really emotional at the end. Not a whole lot to say about this one. It doesn't do a whole bunch different from your kind of like generic family, kind of like feel-good film of December. But I was actually pretty enjoyable, and it was pretty emotional. I saw the movie after seeing about almost all the way of the first season of the anime, and from what I remember, if you like the anime, you're gonna like this movie. There's still a lot of kind of that weird, kind of like silly humor, but when the action scenes kick in, they are pretty awesome, and the animation is pretty stellar.
We get party like it's your birthday.
What a waste of a movie. I've never actually even seen the original House Party, and even I was disappointed with this movie. Just your run-of-the-mill, unfunny movie that thinks it's way funnier than it actually is. Also, can LeBron James just stop acting? Like, is it not enough that you're a really talented basketball player with a lot of rings and a lot of accolades? Do you really need to seep into acting? Because every time I see this man in a movie, I get frustrated. I get visibly angry. The only good part of this movie was surprisingly Kid Cudi's cameo appearance, and he actually has pretty good comedic timing, and he's actually not a bad actor at all. Can we put Kid Cudi in more movies instead of LeBron James? All in all, I doubt you remember this movie coming out, and I doubt I'm gonna remember this movie coming out after I'm done making this video.
It's the end of the world as we know it.
Knock at the Cabin was actually a surprise for me, as in M. Night Shyamalan made a decent movie that didn't have a twist, or at least a forced twist at the end. All the acting was actually pretty good. The cinematography was actually really unique. And Dave Bautista is surprisingly becoming like a really, really good actor. He plays this really unsettling, just anxiety-filled person, and you really believe it. Anytime he's on screen, I'm just like, this guy, I'm not a big fan of this guy. It's not M. Night's best film, it's not Unbreakable, or it's not Split, but it's still a pretty good mystery kind of thriller film. And I was genuinely left wondering if these psychopaths that broke into these people's houses were telling the truth, or maybe it all really was fake. But yeah, an actual surprise hit for me from M. Night Shyamalan, and I hope he keeps going down this road.
Hey, look at us. Look at us. Huh? Who would have thought? Not me.
So we had a couple Marvel movies this year, and if there's one Marvel movie that kind of spelled out the beginning of the end for Marvel, at least currently, it's this movie. I mean, my God, what happened? What is with these Ant-Man movies? Not only do you cast a creative director to make the first movie, then he ends up leaving. But aside from the little bits of Edgar Wright that we had from the first Ant-Man movie, none of these movies have a visual style. None of these movies have any personality. And I know Paul Rudd is trying his darndest. I mean, that man is talented. He's really charismatic, and he kind of is the reason people see these movies. This movie really just spelled out that Marvel was out of steam. Horrible CGI, and I'm not blaming the artists. I know that it's the studios overworking the artists and not giving them enough time. Just a really lame story that really just doesn't have any impact on anything else at all. Jokes that simply fall flat and don't even earn the coveted exhale and inhale through both the nose and mouth. And I know John the Major's had a lot of controversy this year, but I'm only talking about just his performance. He was probably the best part of the movie and played a pretty decent Kang, kind of menacing. But then all that gets ripped away when he's beaten up by Paul Rudd. All in all, just an example of just the sad state of Marvel at the current time, and I will definitely not be going back to this movie.
You're gonna miss me when I'm gone.
So I never actually saw the movie that this is a spiritual successor to, but even without that, the movie was actually pretty engaging. It kept me on the edge of my seat. I was really wanting to go through the mystery. The main actress, Storm Reed, was actually a pretty good leading lady, and I do enjoy this style, when done right, of movies that take place entirely on a computer screen. It is a really interesting way to tell a story, and you could do a whole lot with the medium, unlike some other movies that time has thankfully forgotten. But I suggest giving this one a watch. It's a pretty interesting mystery thriller with a really unique way of telling the story.
Hoping some black bastard would come out of a pub and have a go at me about something, you know.
I fell asleep during this movie and then I walked out. That's not a joke. 0 out of 10.
O cholera, czy to Freddy Fazbear?
Cocaine Bear kind of somewhat delivers on the title, in which you think, wow, this is going to be one crazy, zany, stupid film, but it will be fun. And parts of it are. All the parts with the titular bear that's addicted to sniffy dust are actually pretty enjoyable to watch. There's some pretty good kills, and they just let loose sometimes with just the absurdity of this idea. But of course, we can't just have a movie about a killer bear. That would be way too fun. We have to inject really stupid and meaningless human characters, because why would anyone want to see a movie where the focus is on a bear addicted to cocaine? No one would want that. It's an interesting idea, but I feel like the execution was just not fulfilled all the way.
You are gay.
So I believe this movie actually won Best Foreign Film at the Oscars, and there's a reason. It's a really, really good movie. It goes over what it's like to grow up as a young boy and the relationships we develop with other young boys. Because as a kid, you're not instilled with these pressures and standards of what it means to be a man or a young boy. As a boy, you make friends with other boys, and there's no like, oh, can't do this because I don't want to be perceived as gay. It's a very touching and powerful story, and it's another movie that got me pretty emotional at the end. Of course, if you don't mind reading a couple subtitles, I know that draws a lot of people away from foreign films, and I'm still a beginner in like trying to watch more films that aren't in English. But I would say open your mind up, allow yourself to be challenged, and watch some films that aren't in English. We'll actually get to a really good foreign film later in this list that I liked even more.
You are my friend. I don't you know you, man.
I don't care what people say. Creed 3 is an absolute banger. I mean, Michael B. Jordan's direction gets me really excited to what he might direct next. I mean, this guy is a huge nerd and a weeb. He loves anime, and he took a lot of influence from anime to make a boxing movie. I don't care what anyone says. That's just awesome. It really is a good story about anger and the dangers of anger and the paths that it can lead you on if you let anger consume you or if you let your past consume you. The whole cast does a fantastic job. And again, this is a Jonathan Majors movie that I saw before a lot of this controversy, so I'm just going to be talking about his performance and nothing else. He is really, really good as just this maniacal villain. But yeah, Creed 3 was just a fantastic time for me at the movies, and it reminded me of why I go to the movies. Also, in terms of Michael B. Jordan's directing as well, it's just super creative. The scene at the end where Michael B. Jordan's character and Jonathan Majors' character are having their final fight, and then you kind of see what they see in their head where they're fighting in a large jail cell. It's just some really good visual storytelling and some really good metaphors. Like I said earlier, I just really look forward to what the man is directing next.
I have the power of God and anime on my side! Wait,
Okay, so as you can see, I'm a big fan of Demon Slayer. I'm a little bit behind. I need to catch up on it, but I've just fell in love with this anime over the past year. I really enjoy the characters. I think it's funny. I think the action is great. I think the animation is gorgeous. I don't care if people say it's overrated. With that being said, I did end up seeing the first Demon Slayer movie, and I was like, oh, this is just a movie. It's just a straight up 2-hour movie, and it basically sums up the second season. That's cool. When I went to see this film in theaters, it was just episodes. And it is really cool to see anime on the big screen like that, but when I say they're episodes, I mean they're full episodes. They have the intros, they have the outros, they have the summaries of like the next episode, and they have the flashbacks of what happened in the last episode, and you see all of that in its entirety. Because this movie was just 3 episodes. But it ended up being really long because it had all that stuff in it. And I know another Demon Slayer movie is coming out as of recording next week, and I feel like it's gonna be the same thing. And don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of this anime and I enjoy it, but can we cut out some of the fat and filler and just kind of like stitch all the episodes together so it's like one cohesive narrative, kind of like they did with the Mugen Train movie? That's all I ask. That's all I ask, you know. As a fan, that's all I ask.
I'm retarded?
This one is another one in a line of pretty forgetful comedies. I honestly don't remember a whole lot about it. I will say it did have a lot more heart than I thought. I thought it would just be another movie where it's just like, hey, special needs people are wacky, right? You understand what I'm saying, right? But it actually did have a good amount of heart, and it did treat the special needs characters as people and not just the butt of a joke. At least from my perspective. I don't know what people in the special needs community think of this movie, and I doubt anyone remembers this movie actually coming out. Not a whole lot to say about it, just your run-of-the-mill, kind of like trying to be zany comedy about a sport that'll probably be forgotten.
Every day I wake up.
So I know a lot of people trashed on this movie, and it's not good in the slightest. It is very boring a lot of the time, and it's strange because it's Adam Driver and dinosaurs. You would think that there'd be a lot of cool action, a lot of like really interesting visuals and camera work, but it's very bland and very boring. The one praise I will give this movie is that I did enjoy the relationship between Adam Driver and the young girl. I did believe it. I did think they had an interesting kind of like father-daughter relationship. Other than that, it is kind of just a generic sci-fi, kind of like wannabe Jurassic Park, kind of wannabe like, I don't know, Lost in Space, if anyone remembers that really old 60s show. But it's another movie in a line of kind of just forgettable, generic, bland films.
I just threw a dick at a dragon. I love my life.
What happened? Seriously, like, what happened here? The first Shazam is one of my favorite comic book movies of all time. It's funny, it's heartfelt, it kind of makes fun of the superhero genre and the tropes. So what happened? This movie is uninteresting, it's bland, it's not very funny, the action is really not good, and the CGI is just laughable. Going back to it being not funny, one of the jokes that they put in the trailer got people so upset that it got removed from the movie.
I just threw a truck at a dragon. I love my life.
Well, that's garbage.
And for whatever reason, it became the very thing it was poking fun at in the first movie, a generic, bland superhero movie. And it's not like this movie matters anyway, because next year the whole DC universe is going to get rebooted. You could tell the studio had no faith in this movie. I don't know what they did. They didn't market it at all. You could tell they just kind of pushed out this movie just because of an obligation. It's really sad when you can tell that too. And it's not even the worst horrible thing I've ever seen, but it's just generic and bland, which might be worse.
Yeah, I'm thinking on better.
Okay, back to the good stuff. Yeah, John Wick 4, surprise, it's awesome. The John Wick franchise has just been a heavy hitter in the action films genre, and it proved you could do a lot of interesting things with action movie, with the cinematography, with the choreography, you know, with the gun fu, and Keanu Reeves doing his whole Keanu Reeves thing.
Why do you come here?
And it's not to say that he's particularly great at acting in these movies, which I feel like they use to the movie's credit because they kind of only have him say a couple words. They kind of have him just be this kind of strong, mostly silent kind of type. But this film is just equally as awesome as the other ones, and there's just some amazing action scenes. And I feel like with the John Wick films, you see it and you're like, yeah, you know, that was great, and they did some really unique stuff with the action, but like, where can they go from here? There's no way of them creating a new unique way of like filming an action scene or like choreographing an action scene, and then oh boom, like the next one comes out, and yeah, they did that. They created a new and unique way of filming an action scene and choreographing it. The scene where you see John at a bird's eye view and he's using the dragon's breath gun is gonna go down as one of my favorite action scenes in movie history. Might even be some of my favorite scenes in general. And then the fight in the street with the cars, with the French version of Paint It Black by the Rolling Stones, like, come on, you like, come on. All in all, this film was fantastic, and yeah, it's 3 hours long, but it flies by because you're just enjoying it so much. And here's hoping that spin-off they do is just as good as the mainline John Wick films.
And a poor little baby child is born in the ghetto.
Now here's one that I know a lot of people didn't remember or probably didn't see, but I feel like deserved way more attention. And it's about a young mother and her son just trying to survive in the 90s kind of like ghetto areas. It's a very real and a very gritty story. I mean, obviously I wasn't there in the 90s ghetto New York area, but it seems very true to life and very unabashed and kind of almost the horrors of the systems and things that were happening in the 90s in the ghetto, and maybe also currently in more poor neighborhoods as well. And this wasn't directed by M. Night Shyamalan, but there's there's a pretty good twist at the end. So Tiana Taylor absolutely knocked it out of the park with her performance, and she really deserves a lot more recognition for it. Her character is flawed. She's vulnerable. She gets angry when she shouldn't, but that's okay because she's just a mother. The only criticism I have of this movie is sometimes the editing is a little bit like hokey. It's a little bit weird. Like there'll be this really nice, well acted dramatic scene, and it will just have this empty cut to the next scene without any room for it to breathe, or there's just a lot of weird editing. Now I know that you're my son, and I would do anything for you, and I want you to know that. So please. But aside from that, it is a very well made and very well acted movie, and more people should see it.
Hey, motherfucker! Come here and give me your liver!
Okay, for whatever reason, this movie is one of the more controversial movies to talk about in the film spheres. Is it a movie? Is it a commercial? Is it a product? Is it a woke masterpiece that is indoctrinating your kids into communism? I don't know. Whatever people are talking about these days. But for me, it's just the Super Mario Brothers movie. I have a long hatred for Illumination. If you go back to last year's list, I went on kind of a rant about Minions 2 and putting that out there as a 27-year-old man, that seems really lame and really sad. But hear me out. I dislike Illumination for a lot of the reasons people disliked Michael Bay in the early 2000s. Just absolute lowest common denominator pandering, except instead of pandering to dudes, these guys pander to kids, which I feel could be a little bit worse, because we should care about the things we show our kids. We shouldn't just put anything on because it's colorful and it'll keep them quiet. That being said, what do I think of the Super Mario Brothers movie? I think it's fine. And as somewhat of a movie critic, I'm not exempt from feeling the nostalgia when I hear a song that I remember from a video game that I played years and years ago. Like, there's still a thing inside here that pumps blood to the rest of my body. So obviously, I'm gonna feel some things when I hear the nostalgia. And yeah, you could tell the people that made this movie did some research about the games and the music and tried to incorporate a lot of elements to get people to remember things from their childhood. That being said, there really isn't much of a story here. And to be fair, there isn't a lot of story in a lot of Mario games either. But you have to remember two different mediums. Chris Pratt as Mario is Chris Pratt as Mario. There really isn't anything to say about it besides, yep, that was definitely Chris Pratt as Mario. However, Charlie Day's Luigi is actually a genius casting, and it actually worked pretty well. Too bad they had him captured for most of the movie, and you don't really get to see a lot of him, and you don't really get to see a lot of him interacting with his brother, which is weird because it's the Super Mario Brothers movie. Hello. But the animation was very vibrant and colorful. I'm not the hugest fan of Illumination's kind of like style of animation, but it does look pretty decent here. Although speaking of casting, Jack Black as Bowser, I can't deny that is just amazing. And he does a really fun job. You could tell he's really putting his all into it. Keegan-Michael Key does a pretty good job as Toad. I don't know if they pitched it up or not. Either way, it fits. It feels like if they make sequels, maybe they'll be able to expand a little more. So here's hoping for that. We're hoping that we can see more from this universe and have a better story for the next movie. But all in all, it's fine. There's nothing offensive about it. There's nothing really dumb for your kids. It's a fine movie.
I'm gonna crease your J, Spider-Man.
Yo, speaking of commercialism, why was Air actually kind of a banger? I'm not really familiar with a lot of Ben Affleck's directing credits, but yeah, he did really well directing this movie. And the acting from everybody, Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, Marlon Wayans, he's not even in the film for that long, but he's a pretty good dramatic actor, and I'd like to see him in a lot more stuff. You really get engrossed into this story about a company just trying to make it. And it is very funny how they kind of treat Michael Jordan as this kind of like almost eldritch being. They don't really show his face. You just kind of hear him speak and see him from the back every now and then. But the script is tight, and there's a lot of really funny moments in it. I know we're in the era of where we're like doing a lot of criticism on capitalism and commercialism, and I get that, and I agree with it, and I support it, but as an art piece, this film is just a really, really good story about a company, and it became one of my favorites of the year.
Nothing like saltwater soup. And I got sugar water for dessert. I'm going all out tonight.
Speaking of anime, well, not from the last movie, but speaking of anime, Suzume, it's hard to describe, but the only way I can describe it is the most anime thing I've ever seen. There is a girl and she finds a door that's a portal to another dimension, and a guy comes out and he's like, I'm the protector of the doors, and the man turns into a chair and they're trying to chase a cat throughout the movie. No, don't check your room for any empty pill bottles. This is me being serious. This is the story of the movie. And I'm not gonna lie, it was very entertaining. Like with a lot of anime inspired films that do come out in theaters, the animation is absolutely beautiful. If you can get past just the weird story, and I like anime, so it didn't bother me that much, but it did make me laugh, you'll find that there's a really good heartfelt movie in here. But all in all, it's a pretty good anime movie, if not a bit silly, but I mean, it's anime, so it's gonna be a little bit silly.
Want to see a magic trick? Good. Abracadabra!
What a surprise. This movie got announced and I was like, they're probably just gonna make it some kind of generic, silly, kind of like wannabe Lord of the Rings, but with comedy. But it was a pretty good comedic film. It is a very funny film. There's some really cool action. There's some really cool effects. Like, weirdly enough, the effects don't look like garbage, which has been a theme this year. You know, a lot of things going on with behind the scenes with CGI artists, and you know, they're probably gonna be the next ones to unionize, actually, maybe. That's what I think. But yeah, it's a pretty good comedy film, just a really good adventure film with some neat effects and some pretty good acting. Not a whole lot to say about it, but I would definitely check it out. It was certainly a surprise of how enjoyable it was.
America! Fuck yeah!
So I'm not really familiar with a lot of Guy Ritchie's work. I want to make a video where I delve through all of his movies, because I think the only Guy Ritchie film I've seen is the live action Aladdin. And I know that's not a very good example of his work, so I'm going to try to watch a little more of his movies. But I do know that he has like a very silly and quippy style, almost like the British Tarantino. But this movie kind of reins it in a little bit. It's a lot more serious. It's a lot more gritty. There's still some of that quippy nature in this movie, but it is toned down to really just tell you a pretty good story. And Jake Gyllenhaal is absolutely fantastic. That's another actor that I want to watch more of their movies, but I just haven't. Dang, does he really kill it in this role. The scene where he's talking to the commanding officer about repaying debts is like top 10 film scenes of the year. And a scene where he's on the phone with the military, trying to call people, trying to find this guy that has been lost, and he's just talking to machines and talking to people who give him other numbers to other numbers. I'm not going to go into too much detail about my personal life, but it is very accurate because I've been on the phone with a lot of these people to talk to them about a lot of things, and that's a very accurate portrayal of how it is. But I do recommend this movie. It is a very good action thriller drama with just some really good performances with a dash of Guy Ritchie's unique style.
What did you learn about yourself and your voice?
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one is a bit controversial as well. It is a 3-hour odyssey about a man with anxiety, directed by Ari Aster. And I know a lot of people, it wasn't their cup of tea, they didn't like it. I absolutely loved it. I think Joaquin Phoenix is fantastic in the movie. I think the cinematography is just really immersive in this world that they build. I think the story and the script is so outrageous, but it's just so engaging. It really is a film that has to be seen to be believed. There's just a lot of really wacky and zany elements, but it doesn't take you out of the story and just the horrors that this man is facing. Think about the person that you know, or maybe you are this person, with the worst anxiety in the world and the worst, deepest fears that they have about things that could possibly happen in their life. Times that by 10 and then make it all actually happen. That's Bose Afraid, and I loved every second of it.
I'm just a big old baby boomer, and I'm gonna load a boom on that baby.
It's definitely a biopic. I really don't have a whole lot to say about this movie. The guy that got to play George Foreman was not bad. Pretty okay, decent story. Just very run of the mill. You know, guy gets real famous, then he loses everything, but then he has one final date with destiny in order to reclaim it all back. And also there's a grill, and you should probably buy the grill because it's a good grill, and they sell them in stores at Target, only $29.99. It's a good grill. You could watch it or you could skip it. I don't think anyone remembers this movie even coming out.
I am Adolf Hitler!
This one was an interesting one. It's like, imagine John Wick during World War II. It's just a really cool action film with some really interesting kills. Just some really awesome action scenes. And it's only an hour and a half, so it doesn't overstay its welcome either. Just a superb short action film. There really isn't a whole lot to say besides that. Check it out. It's really good. So in a year where there's a lot of bad blood between not only superhero films, but Marvel in general. James Gunn comes out and just does his thing and shows that superhero fatigue is all garbage. What people want is just really good superhero movies. The problem isn't that there's too many superhero movies. That's not the problem at all. The problem is there's not enough great ones coming out recently, and people are starting to notice. Guardians of the Galaxy is just a great film and has a really great emotional core. The jokes are funny. James Gunn has his flair as directing. It may have one of the best action scenes in a superhero movie, with the hallway fight that plays out to No Sleep Till Brooklyn by the Beastie Boys. I mean, that's just awesome. It's a film that shows that James Gunn is not just your kind of like off the wall kind of quirky comedy guy, but he really knows how to put an emotional core in his films. And it really shows that James Gunn is probably one of the best ones to do it in terms of making superhero films in the current era. And I know Chris Pratt is real easy to get sick of, what with him being cast as Mario and Garfield, but films like this show that Chris Pratt has insane acting range. He could be really funny and goofy, but he can also make you cry. But all in all, this is just a fantastic superhero film, a fantastic film in general. And Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is Marvel at their absolute best.
And the prom's tomorrow!
There's a couple films that I've already talked about in my What I Watched this month segments, so I won't go super long unless it's a film that I have new things to say about. Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret is just a really nice coming of age film. It's funny, it's a little quirky, and I've never been a young girl, obviously, you know, being this, but I feel like a lot of young girls and young people in general can just relate to this movie, talking about just how awkward it is to be going through puberty. It's pretty awkward, and middle schoolers kind of suck, but it is a very nice heartfelt film, and I do recommend checking it out.
Tools! Tools! Duct tape, zip ties, and gloves! I have to have my tools!
This is a film that I will be forever mad that society did not make an absolute smash hit. Blackberry is one of my favorite films of the year. It is a tragic story about a company on top of the world that crashed and burned, and it's told in a way where you feel every single moment. You feel the happiness that the creators of the company feel when they first start picking up traction. You feel the absolute sadness that they feel when they see that they're gonna become a relic of a bygone era and there's nothing they can do to stop it. You get angry at the corruption in the company. This movie's shot in a kind of almost mockumentary style like The Office, and I feel like it lends itself really well to this sort of story, because you feel like you're right there with them as it's happening. Jay Baruchel is fantastic in the movie. He's just this very to himself guy that wants to just make some cool tech. Glenn Howerton, you probably know him from It's Always Sunny, as just that whole show is just unhinged and hilarious, but he's just a great actor. He's so fantastic. Matthew Johnson, who directed the film, is also really good in the movie. But this is a film that more people need to be talking about. This is a film that more people need to see. And I'm really sad that the Academy did not recognize this film at all, because it is genuinely fantastic. Family, family, family. And we're on to some more hot garbage. I've never seen a Fast and Furious movie besides if you count Hobbs and Shaw. Even so, I feel like I've missed nothing and didn't even need to see the other ones. That being said, this movie is boring, bland, generic, and stupid, but from what I understand, some of the other films are so stupid that they're fun, but for me, this one didn't even reach that. It was just a snooze. Oddly enough, the best part of the movie for me was probably John Cena, because I really enjoy his comedic acting. I think he's got really good comedic timing and delivery. Also, Jason Momoa, it feels like he's having a blast with this role as like a weird, almost like Joker-y villain, and I kind of dig it, and I would like to see him take on more roles like that are not just him being, hey, what's up guys, y'all drink any protein powder today? My man. But all in all, I don't have a lot to say about this movie because also the cliffhanger was just so unsatisfying. I'm going to talk about another movie that left at a cliffhanger and I'm okay with it. But this one, I'm not excited in the slightest to see the next one.
Maybe the dingo ate your baby.
What's the deal with A24 rom-coms? I'm really sorry for that bad Jerry Seinfeld impression, and I'll do better. You Hurt My Feelings is just a very good rom-com about just the little white lies that people tell each other and how they could build up into something even more, especially in a relationship. It discusses whether, do you tell your partner everything truthfully, or do you just tell them what you think they want to hear to make them happy? I don't know. I'm lonely and single. Don't ask me. Stop asking me questions, please. They're just a really good script, a very natural dialogue. Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who has yet to answer any of my emails asking for her hand in marriage, that won't have any effect on my rating of the movie. I promise. I'm not upset and I'm not bitter about it. But to no one's surprise, she's a really good comedic actor with great delivery. And she's really good in this film too. And I gotta give a shout out to Tobias Menzies. I think I said that right. He was also really good as kind of just like this straight man, like husband that's just trying to survive and be happy. All in all, I definitely recommend this movie. Probably one of the best rom-coms I've seen in recent memory.
Oh, hey, don't sweat it, Sykes. A lot of white fish can't do it.
I made a whole video talking about this movie, so I'll keep my thoughts short. It's an unnecessary remake that is worse than the original. The songs don't sound as good. The fact that it's in live action doesn't help the movie. In fact, it hinders it because half the movie, the main character is silent. And with animation, you can have them make really expressive facial expressions. They don't even need to talk. You could tell what the character's thinking by just looking at them. In live action, you don't have that benefit unless you have an actor that is really, really good at facial acting. And unfortunately, our main actress is not. She has a beautiful voice, but the facial acting wasn't her strength. It is unnecessarily long. They changed the ending for no reason. Or instead of Prince Eric defeating Ursula, which, shows King Trident, hey, these humans aren't all bad. Like, that's kind of the whole plot of the movie. Oh, like maybe we shouldn't judge them all. They have Ariel defeat Ursula for, I guess, a girl boss moment, but it fundamentally destroys what the movie was even about. So it kind of fails at being a girl boss moment. I don't dislike it as much as Lion King, but I'm not gonna lie, it might be kind of close. Now, I don't recommend seeing this movie at all.
I'm black now, Spider-Man.
You make yourself black so you can say the N-word?
That's right, Spider-Man.
So what can be said about Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse that hasn't already been said? I don't know, but I'm gonna say some stuff anyway. I feel like watching this movie is what people felt when they first watched the first CGI movie, that being Toy Story, and just in awe of just what they're viewing on the screen. Or maybe the first time someone saw Snow White, the first fully animated movie to ever exist, and just being in complete, just wow. There's no other word to describe it but wow. The animation is stellar. It's spectacular. These are understatements. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. They took 4 years to figure out how to animate one character. Come on, guys. The story is relatable, but it's also very unique. Trying to be in a place that you feel like you've earned to be, but the people around you don't want you there. That's deep, I'm not gonna lie. The voice acting from everybody involved was great. And yeah, this movie has a lot of fan service. It has a lot of references, but they supplement the movie. It's not a fan service movie like the Super Mario Brothers movie, where they use the fan service to take place of an actual story. The fan service and the references make an already amazing movie even more amazing. And of course, the memes that come out of this movie are just, A1, S tier. That elevates it even higher. Oh, and not to mention that soundtrack. Come on, Metro Boomin wants some more indeed. I want some more. And yeah, it ends at a cliffhanger, but the movie itself is so satisfying and just such a roller coaster that it's fine. If anything, I'm just more excited for the next one, and I want to keep rewatching this one in anticipation for the next one. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is a cinematic achievement and should be seen as such. It shouldn't be seen as just a good cartoon or good animated movie, a good superhero movie. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is a fantastic cinematic achievement film. And I'm extremely disappointed in the Oscars, like they care or would listen to me. But I'm extremely disappointed in the Oscars for not recognizing the cinematic achievements of this movie. Yeah, it's up for Best Animated Picture, which, rightfully it should be. I can't think of a single reason it shouldn't be nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay. Can't think of a single reason it should be nominated for Best Original Score, or Best Original Song, or Best Visual Effects, or, and I'm gonna say it, I don't think there's a single reason it shouldn't be nominated for Best Film. It's a film that goes above and beyond its genre, and it should be appreciated for doing so. 1 out of 10. Don't watch it. I'm kidding. It's fantastic, and a 10 is the highest I can give it. but it goes beyond that. It goes beyond that. It goes beyond the 10. You guys understand what I'm saying? Because it's the Spider-Man. It goes the Spider-Man beyond. The Spider-Man goes beyond a 10. Now, so what I was trying to say was that it goes beyond.
Let them.
You know, this movie, it's not great, but I'd be lying if I didn't have a fun time with it. I mean, just a lot of big robots fighting. That's all I could really ask for. There's some really good robot on robot action. I just realized that sounds really weird. Although if they put that in the movie, you know what I'm saying, I might have to bump it up a grade, you know what I'm saying? It's a fun, silly, stupid robot movie, and I really can't imagine asking for more. And the main star, Anthony Ramos, actually doesn't do a bad job. He's actually pretty good in the movie. The Pete Davidson Transformer didn't annoy me. I gotta give the film credit. I'm sorry film nerds out there. It doesn't break the mold. It's kind of just a generic action movie, but it's fun.
My heart, I loved her. Wow.
This film is one of the most heartbreaking things I've ever seen. It's literally a movie about the one that got away. And I want to give these main actors their deserved recognition. So I will say Greta Lee as the main actress, Teo Yo as one of the main actors, just absolutely killed it with their performance and absolutely knocked it out of the park. The cinematography is gorgeous. It's a very beautiful film to look at. You could tell the emotional core of this movie is very personal. What's crazy is the director, Celine Song. This is her first movie. That's insane. And it's this good. I really look forward to the movies she makes in the future because this film blew me away. It's about just real people trying to live their lives that somehow find their way back to each other, but realize that they weren't meant to be. And as sad as that is, they accept it and they live with it. It's a fantastic movie. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it. Should have been nominated for more things at the Oscars.
Super hot fire. I spit that.
Ugh, here comes some more woke Disney garbage. This movie's a 0 out of 10 because it turned my son gay after he watched it because it was so woke. All right, are all the idiots gone? Okay, I can actually talk about the film now. Elementals is a fine film. It's nothing groundbreaking that Disney's done. In fact, it's very derivative of other films Disney's actually done. But the animation is really gorgeous, and it's an interesting idea. You know, having all these elements live in different cities and going through metaphors of, you know, prejudice, racism, all that. That's all fine and dandy. It's just the story itself is just kind of an interesting. Disney this year has just been putting out animated projects that are just very much, it just feels like we've seen this all before. It's not putting butts in the seats because why watch a less good version of something you've already seen? Like I said with the Mario Bros. Movie, there's nothing offensive in it for your kids, but all in all, it's just an okay, fine animated film.
Yuji Itadori! I'm into girls like Jennifer Lawrence!
I talked about this film in an earlier video, so I'll keep my thoughts brief. It's a pretty decent R-rated raunchy comedy in a time where a lot of R-rated raunchy comedies just aren't making it to theaters or aren't doing well in theaters. Jennifer Lawrence does a pretty good comedic performance. The movie is a pretty decent comedy. There's some decent jokes. It may not make you ruffle, but it will make you LOL at the very least. That was the cringiest thing I've ever said, and I don't know why I keep doing this. Not a whole lot to say in the filmmaking department, doesn't break new ground in cinematography or anything, but it's just a fine, pretty decent, better than average raunchy comedy.
Boss looking alien! Where?
So aside from the two animated Wes Anderson films, this is my first live action Wes Anderson film. And I know this film kind of split people into like, this probably isn't the best of Wes Anderson. I don't know if I would like start people on their Wes Anderson journey with this film. That being said, I absolutely fell in love with this movie. I love this style of quirky, weird, deadpan humor, the style that Wes Anderson is known for, and it's on full effect here, and it's really funny, and it's very interesting to watch. Boy, does that Wes Anderson really know how to film a shot, huh? The cinematography, I don't know if I'd use the word beautiful, but it is very well done, and it adds to a lot of the visual humor in the movie. And I do enjoy the meta aspect of the film, where you're watching a movie based on a play, and then they cut back to the people working on a play in the movie. It says a lot about art and just the creation aspect of art, and I think it's all really well done. Please go watch this movie because I feel like not enough people did. So I talked about this movie in a past video, so I'll keep my thoughts brief. It is a pretty decent R-rated raunchy comedy in an era where I feel like I just said this. No, but seriously, it seems like this year had a couple different R-rated raunchy comedies come to the big screen, and we just haven't seen that in a while. This one, again, isn't breaking new ground, but it is decently funny. It has a pretty good cast, they all do a pretty good performance, and wow, this movie is horny, this movie is horny. This movie is horny. But with all that being said, it's not a bad flick to check out on a date night, or just if you want to just see something that'll tickle your pickle a little bit. It's not a bad film at all.
Release the crowd!
Okay, so I guess Disney isn't the only one putting out mediocre content this year. DreamWorks, it's your turn. I talked about this movie in an earlier video, so I'll keep my thoughts somewhat brief. It is a very generic animated film that doesn't really do a whole lot to elevate the medium. I do like the character design. I'll give the film that. It's some very interesting character design. But other than that, it's just a normal fish out of water. Fish out of water. But it is just a generic fish out of water story of a girl trying to fit in, but she's got hidden magical powers. The film also wasn't very funny either. And it's crazy that just the year prior, DreamWorks put out one of the best animated films to come out in recent years and then followed it up with this. I don't know what's going on at DreamWorks, but fix it, please. I'm just Pete and I like chugs. I also talked a lot about this film in an earlier video, so I'll keep my thoughts somewhat brief. So after the video, I actually saw the movie a second time, and I think I actually liked it even more. Yes, it's feminism 101. There's a lot of conversation going on about it, but I don't really want to talk about that right now. My criticism still stands that at the end of the movie, there's a long speech that kind of spoon feeds the message to the audience, and I feel like the film could have done without that because it was doing so well. But it is a very funny film. There's some great performances from Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling, who is literally me, by the way. The set design is just immaculate. I mean, come on, look at this stuff. And I think a lot of the satire of just American masculine and feminine culture is just really well done. I do recommend seeing Barbie. It is very, very good. Y'all don't really want it like I've talked about this film earlier, but I gotta talk about it again because it's Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer is a film that you watch and you leave almost changed. Christopher Nolan is just a master of his craft at this point. I haven't seen a lot of his movies, but man, this is a really great one. You follow this man who is propped up as a hero, but realizes that maybe everything isn't what he thought it was. Cillian Murphy is absolutely fantastic in the movie. Like I said in a previous video, like I said in an earlier video, Cillian Murphy does a great job in the role. He has this look of dissociation through a lot of the movie and just completely lost in thought, completely lost in the weight of his own actions. The film is just fantastic. It's shot amazingly. The use of practical effects, just, you know, a complete master class in how to make a movie. Please go watch it if you haven't already. I doubt many people haven't because it made a bunch of money, but yes, please, it's amazing. Okay, Disney, forgettable movie. What? I don't have a lot to say about this one. It just is a movie that exists. The effects look bad. The acting is fine. They wasted Lakeith Stanfield, who's a fantastic actor. They wasted Owen Wilson, who is a great actor and a comedic, you know, gem. They wasted Danny DeVito, who's Danny DeVito. There's no style to this movie. There's no passion put behind it. You could feel it. It's just a movie that Disney put out just because. Don't watch it.
Who put you on the planet? Ugh.
Okay, we're on to something that I really enjoyed. Theater Camp is one of the most underrated movies of the year. Theater Camp is another film that's filmed in a mockumentary style, and it's just one of the funniest films I've seen all year. I laughed so hard in this movie, and I was in a pretty much a full theater when I saw it, and everyone was laughing. I feel like not a lot of people saw it, but it was just really good. Shout out to Ayo Adibri. She's really great in the movie, and she's been popping up everywhere, and I know she's blown up with the bear, and she's actually going to be in the next movie I'm about to talk about, but she's great. Everyone in this film was just great. There's a lot of visual gags, a lot of just like really quick gags that if you're not paying attention you might miss. The script is really great and just funny. It's just hilarious. I wouldn't doubt if a lot of this stuff is ad-libbed because it all just feels so natural. But yes, if you haven't, do yourself a favor, go watch this underrated gem, please.
How about telling me who gave them to you?
Yo mama.
Here's another woke movie. My son watched it, and because April was black, he turned black. I really enjoyed this film. I'm a big Turtles fan, and this is just another in the line of really good turtle content. Spider-Verse has done a lot in influencing animation, and that makes me really happy. But each project that comes out that's very similar to Spider-Verse puts their own spin on it. This is a very similar style to Spider-Verse, but it's very gritty and dirty like a comic book, like the old Turtles comic books. The animation flows so fluidly, and the action scenes are animated beautifully and have some really good choreography as well. That is one criticism I have. I wish there was a little more like just action of turtles using ninjutsu and using their weapons and stuff, but hopefully in a sequel we'll get a little more of that. But like a lot of people said, I do like that the turtles were voiced by actual teenagers, and you really feel this camaraderie of 4 teenagers that you believe are brothers. And yes, they use Gen Z slang. They're a little bit cringe, but come on, think back to what it was like when we were that age. We were cringe too. We were all saying stuff like, I'm a fire in my laser, and oh, I'm a gummy bear, you know, I'm a gummy bear. Like, you know, that was us when we were kids, so we really don't have a lot of room to talk. Another criticism I do have is that sometimes the turtles didn't feel as distinct as I'd want them to. Like, they're all cracking jokes, which is fine because they're teenagers, but I'm more used to Mikey being the jokester and everyone else having a joke here and there. But again, in a sequel, I hope the characters do develop a little more and form their own distinct personalities. Also, just the soundtrack of 90s hip hop in this movie is just cherry on top. Amazing. This one also kind of flew under the radar, and I'm kind of sad because I really enjoyed it. This is a movie, it's kind of like a post-apocalyptic or alien war kind of movie where Earth has been inducted into kind of this galactic organization run by some aliens. They do trade and stuff. It's not exactly a hostile takeover, but it's not exactly not. And a big element is that these aliens don't understand romance or don't have romance, and so they'll pay good money to watch people stream their own relationships, and that's where our main characters come in. They decide to stream their relationship, and they get into a little bit of trouble because they end up not loving each other but also like faking it, which gets them in a legal battle with the aliens. It is a very interesting and different movie. I think the performances for everybody were pretty good, but a special shout out to Tiffany Haddish, who normally I cannot stand, but she actually had a really good kind of reined in dramatic serious role in the movie. There's a little bit of quirky comedy in it, and I understand it's probably not for everybody, but I really enjoyed it. And I do enjoy the commentary that the film has on capitalism and the 1% and how that can affect those who don't have a lot of money. It's just a really good film, and I want more people to go see it.
No mommy's way, a la Vergo.
You know, I'm gonna say it. I liked Blue Beetle. Yeah, I know it's not breaking new ground with the superhero genre. Yeah, I know its story can be a little bit generic. We've seen a lot of this stuff before, but what really pulls it together is the performances and the family dynamic. You really feel that this family is very close, and anyone who's been around a Hispanic family, they can tell you a lot of the things in the movie are pretty accurate. And again, special shout out to Zolo Maridueña. He's really good in the movie. He has some pretty good comedic timing, and I know that he has a lot of background in martial arts because he's in Cobra Kai, and he's really good. He kind of like pulls the movie together as well. Not a whole lot to say about the movie, but you know, it was a pretty decent ride, and I hope that this character does get carried over into the new DC James Gunn universe, because I do enjoy it. And no, I'm not offended like certain people will try to tell you that a movie showed a Mexican family eating tacos.
He happens to be Hispanic. Does every single aspect of his life have to be tacos? Yes. Literally in the beginning, he's getting back from college. They're like, let's go get tacos. And then they walk into their house and she's like, that's where mama told us how to make salsa.
Shut the fuck up!
Because I don't know if you're aware of this, but tacos are Mexican food.
What up, dog? And dog?
So Strays is an R-rated raunchy comedy in an era where there's not a whole lot. Okay, but seriously, again, return of the R-rated raunchy comedy in theaters. Strays is okay. It's got some interesting jokes every now and again. There's a really interesting segment where the dogs get high on mushrooms and it plays with the different mediums. There's puppets, there's animation, there's a whole lot of interesting visuals. But for the most part, it kind of just seems like the only joke is dogs are saying naughty things. And that's pretty much what I got from the trailer. There's nothing really creative or inventive about the movie, but I mean, it's nice to see a talking dog movie in theaters again. It's been a while since we've had one of those. All in all, the movie is fine. It's not a bad watch, but I don't think it's going to be remembered in the great comedies.
I'm going to do what's called a pro gamer move.
Finally, a movie about the most oppressed race gamers. Like, you know, we get it. Hispanics, you had your blue Beetle, but now it's the gamers' turn for some representation, okay? Oddly enough, I enjoyed Gran Turismo. I think the scenes with the racing were shot pretty well. I think the performances were pretty good. There's a good emotional core to the movie, which I didn't expect, between the father and the son. And there's also a good emotional story with David Arbor's character. Like, there's some effort put into this movie. There's not a whole lot to say about it, but it was a pretty decent movie, and I would recommend it.
I'm a lesbian.
So this is an R-rated raunchy comedy. Out of all the R-rated raunchy comedies that actually came out, I feel like Bottoms is definitely top tier for sure. It was a really good coming of age, just really stupid comedy. Ayo Adibri back at it again, but this time with Rachel Sennett. They also have just really good chemistry, and they bounce off each other really well. And yeah, it's a high school teen raunchy comedy, but not involving straight people, and that's okay. Not all the jokes land, but the ones that do are pretty darn good. And this is another film where it seems like there was a little bit of ad-libbing. I'm not sure entirely, but some of the delivery of these lines is just so funny. And the film gets really wild at the end, like really wild. Like there's murder involved, and it's all just treated as kind of normal, but it is a very fun, raunchy, zany comedy, and I do recommend it. There's not a whole lot to be said about Kills the Flower Moon that hasn't been already. It's an important story. It's a very important story, and I'm glad that it was told. The acting is fantastic. The storytelling is fantastic. DiCaprio kills it. Lily Gladstone gives a very good performance. It's shot really well. It's tense. I will admit, I saw it while tired, and I fell asleep a little bit for like about 10 minutes. Not because the movie's not good. Sometimes I see movies after a long string of working a lot, and that's probably not the best thing to do. So I do want to watch it again, but it is a fantastic movie, and I recommend anyone who hasn't seen it to go see it. And yes, it's 3 hours. You'll be fine. Five Nights at Freddy's is a movie that is kind of bad, but it's bad in all the ways that are really entertaining. This is a movie where people make choices that make no sense, and nothing really happens in the movie. I've never seen a bigger nothing burger of a movie than this movie that promises a lot. I will say Josh Hutcherson's pretty good in the movie, and the animatronics are fantastic. They both look scary, but also really cuddly. You just want to hug them. The story itself really doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and the character motivations don't make a whole lot of sense either. But I do recommend watching this movie because you'll have a blast just laughing at it. I recommend watching it with a group or with a friend, with a couple friends, because it really is an entertaining movie, but not for the reasons that the creators intended. R-rated raunchy comedy, but A24, so I mean, hey, you know, that's different. The songs in this movie were very, very catchy. I did enjoy the story. I did laugh a lot in this movie. Funny thing is, I saw this movie also in a pretty packed theater, and the person next to me, every joke, no matter whether it landed or not, he was having the time of his life, and he was laughing really loud. Every joke that came up, all I heard from this dude was and you know, that was, not gonna lie, a little irritating, but it just showed that the movie is really funny. I don't think a lot of people saw it, so if you get a chance, please watch the movie. Although I will say, if you're easily offended, do not watch the movie, because there is just so many offensive jokes that will offend so many people. But I do enjoy just the weird zaniness of the movie, and I do appreciate a movie that is willing to take those risks and just have just weird stuff happen. But yeah, I enjoyed it. Watch it.
Had them apple bottom jeans, boots with the fur.
So I might have been a little too nice to Elvis in my 2022 video. Priscilla really is that good, though. It is a really, really good story about this young girl who meets this really, really, really older man, and they form a romance. But it shows you kind of that darker side of this romance and just Elvis in general. He didn't just come on the screen and was like, hey, mama, I love you, mama. Jacob Elordi actually did a fantastic job portraying Elvis. And it's interesting that they got someone so tall and then casted someone who is so little to play Priscilla Presley. Kaylee Spaney also does a great job, by the way. But just the way these two look together really shows the power dynamic and just shows what an overbearing figure Elvis was in her life. But it is a really, really great movie, and I recommend it.
I wanna kill my mom! I wanna kill my dad!
boy oh boy, I sure do love the Smiths, and they play a lot of Smiths in this movie. The Killer is a very slow, methodical movie. There's a lot of voiceover and narration, and I think it works. There's not a whole lot of action, but the action that is there is really well shot and really well choreographed, and it looks amazing. But you're watching this character who has a job that is very unconventional, and he kind of just explains the unconventional nature of it. And you really kind of feel for him. Not a whole lot to say, but it is a very entertaining film if you're willing to put up with a lot of narration and just the slow nature of it.
It's radical!
Radical. We're talking about Radical. This is another foreign film that's entirely in a different language, that being Spanish. But this film ended up being one of my favorites of the year. It is absolutely fantastic. A shout out to Eugenio Derbez. He puts so much heart and so much emotion into this performance, and it's palpable. You really do feel like every struggle this man is going through. It's a film about a teacher who starts teaching at a middle school and has a lot of unconventional methods to teach the kids how to do stuff. And there is a method to his teaching. He's not just like, oh, we're gonna be a little bit weird and quirky. Like, all the things he does to help these students learn actually helps them learn, but he does it in a way that people see as unorthodox, and so they don't like it. It really shows the importance of really good teachers and the impact they can have on students. I'm friends with a lot of teachers, and I know the job is hard, and it's hard to be that figure for people 24/7 while you're there at the school. It's exhausting. But the teachers who do go above and beyond like that leave a lasting impact. And obviously teachers need to get paid way more. There's a lot of understaffing, there's a lot of underfunding. That is a whole situation, and I am completely 100% with the teachers on this one. But it is just a really good story, and there's a lot of really dark moments that got me very emotional, and will probably get you very emotional at the end as well. But if you haven't seen this movie, I recommend it. It's just fantastic. It's wonderful. I've heard a lot of people describe the Holdovers as a warm hug or handshake or whatever form of conjugal touch you like. And yeah, that's pretty accurate. Of course, Paul Giamatti is fantastic in the role. He's a great actor, really amazing comedic timing. But Dominic Sessa as this troubled youth, I believe this is his first film, and he is amazing, and I really would love to see him in more. Davine Joy Randolph also plays this troubled older lady, but who also has a very warm personality to her. Everyone in the movie is going through some sort of struggle in their life, and you really feel for all of them, and you experience it all with them. You're not only watching the movie, you're experiencing a slice of life with these characters, and you feel 100% of it. The style of this movie is really unique too. It's very old school 70s filmmaking. It's shot to look like it was made in the 70s. The logos all look very retro. But not only is the film emotional, it is really funny. There's a lot of really, really good lines in the movie. If you haven't seen Holdovers, I definitely recommend it. It's one that I will be throwing on every year for Christmas.
Why won't you
kill my grandma, okay?
Seriously, DreamWorks, what happened? This is the first Trolls movie I've ever seen, and I really don't have any inkling to go and watch the others after this movie. It's not horrible, but it's just really, really generic. The animation is colorful, I guess, and they do a couple interesting things during the sequences. The covers of the songs are pretty decent. You know, having NSYNC come back at the end it kind of can give you the warm fuzzies, but the film as a whole is just fine. There's nothing more, nothing less. Like I've said about previous films, there's nothing offensive in it, but it is just okay. Look guys, I promise you, Taika Waititi is a talented director. Please, please don't let him be defined by Thor Love and Thunder in this film. Next Go Wins isn't really bad. It's a fun enough quirky comedy with that Taika Waititi quirk touch. There is some really good trans representation in the film, and they unabashedly had a trans character be one of the main characters of the movie, and that's very unexpected in a major Hollywood film. But it's just another sports movie where the team is kind of bad and he's like, hey, let's be good. But there's nothing that really stands out about this movie that makes stand out from other better sports films. It's just a fine movie.
How'd it get burned? How'd it get burned? How'd it get burned?
A24, you know, obviously they stay making W's, bro. Like, come on, it's A24. Dream Scenario is a hilarious film, and Nicolas Cage is fantastic in the film. It's a very good story about mob mentality, you know, whether we're coming together to lift someone up or bring them down. fun. It tackles cancel culture in a way that isn't annoying or doesn't take a political side in it, but it just shows how it can happen and the dangers of it. The story is ridiculous and doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but you kind of forgive it because the movie is just so funny and because the performances are so good and because it's shot so well. And Nicolas Cage does have a couple of his Cageisms where he does the freak out, but for the most part he's a little bit drawn back. It's a great film and I hope it doesn't get forgotten.
What's up, gamer boys? It's time to get your gamer girl Bathwater. This
is another controversial film because of the subject matter, because is it really good or is it just weird? I'm somewhere in the middle. It is a very good film, but I never need to see it again. Barry Keoghan and Jacob Elordi are fantastic in the film, and it is a very good look into like rich society and how corrupt it is. And Barry Keoghan's character is just this evil mastermind, and I did not see the twist coming at the end, but maybe I'm just bad at seeing twists. But it is a very beautifully shot film. The lighting and the cinematography really work well to create this uncomfortable, just ew feeling in the movie. Even if you're hesitant, I recommend seeing it at least once because it's definitely an experience. And yes, the bathwater scene is weird, and there was another scene involving blood that is also very uncomfortable.
You don't fucking talk to me like that!
This movie is AI generated, you cannot convince me otherwise. Wish is everything wrong with modern Disney films. No, it's not because it's woke, no, it's not because it's political, no, it's not because the main character is brown. The film is just a derivative, boring snooze fest that adds nothing to the table of animation. Everything you've seen in this movie, you've seen done better in other movies. Also, the animation really isn't good. It looks unfinished. I get they were going for a more cel-shaded style, but it feels like they didn't fully commit to it, and so it just looks unfinished. The songs aside from the main song they use in the trailer are really forgettable. The villain song is probably the worst villain song ever in a movie.
I let you live it for free and I don't even charge you rent.
I let you live here for free and I don't even charge you rent. Those are the same thing. You didn't need to say it twice. And that's what makes me think that AI played a part in this movie because there really isn't any thought or passion put into it. And then they also have a lot of like Disney references because it's the 100th year anniversary. They put a lot of references. She has a group of friends that are supposed to be kind of like the Seven Dwarves. There's an angry one, a sleepy one that sneezes, and it does nothing but make these characters just seem one note and generic. The story itself doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and you kind of end up siding with the villain because his whole thing is people give him wishes, but he doesn't grant all of them, and sometimes he doesn't for good reason because what if someone wishes for someone to die? He's not just going to grant that. The main character's grandpa wishes to inspire the next generation, but the king is like, what does that mean? It's very vague. Does he mean inspire with music? Does he mean inspire with a revolution, with a fire, with a war? Like, and you agree, yeah, that's very reasonable. Also, the king turns into a villain at the drop of a hat. 1 second he's this nice, benevolent king, and the next evil, completely evil. No reason really. Like, this movie is just a list of bullet points that are supposed to be in a Disney movie, and they just did things to check them off without really thinking if it would make sense in the story or even just make a good story. I really don't like this movie. It's not good, and it's just representative of everything that's wrong with modern Disney.
The first time I went to a circus, somebody died. One of the clowns died.
Okay, off of that terrible animated movie and off to a really good one. You know, I saw Princess Mononoke for the first time this year, and that was my first Studio Ghibli film. And it's great. This film is also great. This is another one that I saw late after working a lot, so I ended up falling asleep towards the end, and I need to watch it again, but it is a fantastic film. It's beautifully animated. Robert Pattinson, man, as the Heron, you can't even tell that's him. This man is so talented. I've been telling you, all these people are like, oh, he's Twilight, Vampire, Sparkle. No, Robert Pattinson is a genuine great talent and one of the most talented actors in his generation.
What exactly are you?
Y'all need to stop sleeping on my boy. The voice acting from everybody was fantastic. Christian Bale is a little hokey at times because it seems like you could hear his British accent sometimes. The story is a little bit slower at times. It's less so a grand Odyssey adventure and more just a very personal story, and from what I'm seeing about what the story actually means, it fits. But it is a very good film, and I really want to watch it again so I could fully soak in the amazingness. But for now, I'll just recommend it because it is a fantastic film.
It's Godzilla! It looks like Godzilla, but due to international copyright laws, it's not.
This is not only a fantastic Godzilla movie, not only a fantastic foreign film, it is just a fantastic film in general. I know I said this earlier with Creed, but Godzilla Minus One is the reason you go to a theater to see movies. Because not only is it a story about a giant dinosaur thingy that attacks, and no, it's just the epicness of that. There's a really good story with the human characters. I'm not even a big Godzilla fan. I haven't seen a lot of the Toho stuff, and I've seen a little bit of the American stuff, but I do know that when I watched Godzilla X Kong, I was saying, please stop focusing on these boring human characters and get to the monsters. But I wasn't saying that with this film. The main character, played fantastically by Kamiki Ryunosuke. He is a fantastic actor, and I want to see him in more stuff, and he's great in this movie. His story involves him being a runaway kamikaze pilot during World War II, and just the weight of that alone carries the story and his emotional path. The effects in this film are just top notch, which is crazy because it had a very low budget, lower than a lot of American films, and it still looked fantastic. And surprising, this movie made me very emotional at the end. I didn't think a Godzilla movie could do that. And yeah, this is another one where I'm disappointed at the Oscars for not giving the main actor a Best Acting nomination. I get that it's a very stacked year, but man, this guy is so good. All in all, Godzilla Minus One is a fantastic movie. It's one of the best of the year. Believe the hype. It is as good as everyone says.
Good morning, Starshine. The Earth says hello.
Hey yo, who's up wonking they Willy right now? The trailers made it seem like Wonka was gonna be just kind of this trying too hard to be whimsical film that is just really annoying. But I gotta say, I'm pleasantly surprised. Timothy Chalamet actually does a really good job playing a young Wonka. The songs are really good, actually. And all the other performances are just really good. This is a very whimsical film. It's a very earnest film. I think earnest is a good way to describe it. None of it feels phoned in. None of it feels tacky or fake. There's some really good choreography in the dance scenes. It has a quirky sense of humor that works for the most part. It isn't my favorite movie of the year, but it is a very good film. And I kind of wish that it got a little more attention at the Oscars.
Leopold!
Okay, I did not love Maestro. I know a lot of people loved Maestro, but I know a lot of people also didn't really like Maestro. I think conceptually and from a filmmaking standpoint, it is fantastic. The way it starts off as a black and white film, kind of just that like kind of happy-go-lucky style, it really is well done. It's well shot, it's well executed, and it looks like a film that was shot during that 1920s black and white era. And then it cuts to more of a modern style of filmmaking when the character's a lot older and his life doesn't seem as happy. And Bradley Cooper does do a fantastic job playing the character. And the fact that he learned how to become a conductor just for this movie, it's something that should be admired. That being said, the movie is painfully slow at sometimes and a little bit dull. That's the main problem I have with the movie, is that it gets so close to being great, but it's just kind of boring sometimes. And you can say what you want, like maybe I just don't get it. Maybe you think I just don't get it, or like maybe I need to watch it again, but that's just the main criticism I have with this movie. Great filmmaking techniques, great performances. The movie's just kind of boring. But, you know, check it out, give it your own thought. Maybe you see something that I don't.
Consequences, consequences, as long as I'm rich.
Okay, so Illumination, again, kind of surprising me. I've ranted about Illumination in the past and in this video, but oddly enough, Migration is pretty darn good. The way they animate the flight scenes is kind of breathtaking. You really feel like you're in the air with these ducks. The sense of humor is pretty decent too. There's a lot of really good jokes in it. Awkwafina's in the movie, and I don't want to stab my ears with a pencil. Yeah, it's no Spider-Verse, it's not groundbreaking animation, but it is just a fun time at the movies. And is it weird to say that Kumail Nanjiani is kind of perfect to play a duck because his voice kind of has a duck-like quality to it? That's a weird compliment, but it really works in the film. Okay, I'm so sick of this DC universe, and I'm so glad it's getting rebooted. Aquaman 2 is just another film in a long line of really disappointing superhero films this year, and there's not a whole lot to say about it. It's very bland, it's very dull, it's very generic. Jason Momoa's kind of funny in the movie. Amber Heard is absolutely terrible. Even aside from all the controversy and abuse that she's done to Johnny Depp, she's just not good in the movie. The effects don't look great. The script is just all over the place. You're just watching this character on a fetch quest. It's just everything that's not great about superhero films in the modern era.
He calls me nigga. He calls the other kids nigga. He calls himself nigga.
So these last couple of movies, starting with American Fiction, I saw very recently, and I'm glad I waited to make this video till I did see these last couple films because they were all really good. American Fiction is a great film about what it means to be a minority and what expectations are held upon you by other people in that group or by other people outside of that group. Jeffrey Wright is the main character. He's funny. He has a really great dramatic and comedic delivery. Sterling K. Brown just gives an extra special amazing performance. He is absolutely hilarious in the movie. I don't talk about score a lot, but the score is really good. It's just this off-the-wall freeform jazz, and the story just has a very odd sense of humor, especially towards the ending, and I appreciate that a lot. It's just a film that everyone needs to see because it is very important but also very funny. It doesn't feel like it's lecturing towards you, but it just feels like it has a lot to say. The Zone of Interest is a very interesting movie because it is another one that's very slowly moving and very much a slow burn, but I feel like that works with the movie for the most part. It's a film about a German soldier's family that moves into a house right next to a concentration camp, and they never explicitly show the horrors that happen in the concentration camp. They definitely allude to it very strongly. Throughout this family living their kind of just normal everyday life, you see the smoke, you hear the screams. There's a part where the soldier finds a bone in the river. It's heavily alluded to, and it's just a very, very dark and realistic representation of just the horrors that happened. The film is a little slow and that can turn people off, but it is very, very good. There's some really good acting in it, and it has an ending that will just kind of leave you speechless. I do recommend this movie a lot.
By the way, you're gay.
All of Us Strangers was just a really, really great film. It's just a creative way of storytelling. It's about this gay man who starts a relationship with another man, and you see him visiting his family a lot, but you find out that his family actually died 30 years ago. But whenever he visits the house, the parents are still alive, but they are the same age they were when they died and when he was a kid. And it's just a very tense and intriguing story, and it's super emotional. I cried like a baby at the end. I don't want to reveal a whole lot about the story and what happens because it is a film that just needs to be seen. But please go see this movie. It is great.
Well, at least we're not getting slaughtered in mathematics class.
Speaking of great films, Poor Things. Man, Poor Things, I heard so much about it and then I saw it and it blew me away. I'm not super familiar with Yorgos Lanthimos' work, but man, it makes me want to check out his entire filmography. This film is hard to talk about because there's just so much great stuff in it. The cinematography is so well done. There's so many very weird and unique and different shots, fisheye lenses. The sets are amazing. Some of them are made from paintings and other unconventional methods. The acting from everybody involved just is amazing. Emma Stone has the task of playing this girl that gets progressively more intelligent as the movie goes on, and it feels completely natural and you believe it. Mark Ruffalo gives a really funny and very silly role. He's really giving it his all. Everyone in the movie is just dialed up to 11 with their performances, and it is just fantastic. And this is a film that deals with a lot of feminist ideals but doesn't spoon feed it to you. It doesn't feel like you're attending a lecture. It feels like it's just a movie that just so happens to feature those ideas. When I talked about horny movies with the Joyride, this one is also pretty horny, but it doesn't feel gratuitous and it doesn't feel out of place. It all has to do with the message of the film. But just go see this film. It is just fantastic in every way imaginable.
Only the claw knows.
Okay, and we're at the end. The last movie I wanted to talk about, even though I saw it before some of the other movies, was The Iron Claw. I saw this film in not the best mental state, and it really, really affected me, and it made me very emotional. The Iron Claw is a movie about the Von Erich wrestling family, which I knew nothing about going in. I don't know anything about wrestling besides John Cena. You know, he beat John Cena. But you don't have to know anything about wrestling to enjoy this movie. I know I've talked a lot about great performances, but this film has performances that will leave you to tears and that will leave you in awe. Jeremy Jeremy Allen White is fantastic in the film, but also Zac Efron. He's another one where a lot of people still see him as the High School Musical guy, and that's just a shame because the man is really, really talented. This film is about the pressures you can put on your children. It's about mental health. It deals a lot with suicide. It's a film that tackles so many serious topics and handles it with such grace. The cinematography is also really immersive, especially when they show the wrestling scenes. It's just a movie that, again, has to be seen to be believed because it is genuinely one of the best films released all year. Alrighty, and those are all the movies I saw. I'm sorry this video was kind of long, but I really needed to talk about all these films. I know I say this all the time, but I'll be trying to make more videos for you guys because I'm trying to get back into this whole YouTube thing because I really enjoy doing it. But as always, if you guys like this video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all the YouTube jazz that the YouTubers always say, and I'll see you guys in the next video. I just saw Madam Web and it affected me in such a way that I feel like that might be the next video I make. So I'll see you guys then. Thanks for watching.